この番組はご覧のスポンサーの提供でお送りします。Alrighty, well, it is Wednesday and we're here for Tensei and Mushoku is what we're gonna do today. Sorry. Welcome everyone, I'm here for Mushoku Tensei, it's Wednesday. As you can tell, maybe, I just got out of an ice cold shower and that means I'm awake. It's funny, you can go back and go see the morning tea from this morning, which I recorded before I went and took the shower, and I'm like yawning and sort of fading out, and now I'm like awake and ready to go for Mushoku Tensei. And a little bit too crazy, but we'll oscillate down and we'll bring it into focus a little bit as we move through discussing what happened last time on Mushoku Tensei, what we might expect for next time on Mushoku Tensei, and some of the comments on Mushoku Tensei. I don't know whether I will split out the comment section from this video. I did that on the last Cyberpunk Edgerunners video, and it might be something that I do in the future, is separate the comment spotlight as a separate piece of content. That way the reaction video stays far more concise, and the discussion stuff stays more discussion-y and more isolated and more like categorized. But that might be wrong and bad because it might lead to less discussion. I don't know. I don't know yet. It'll depend on how long the comment spotlight is. So I'm going to let that just sort of run. I'm just going to go for the comment spotlight for as long as it feels necessary. And then I will decide in editing whether I want to cut it out. And I'll put an indication of whether I did that here. Okay, cool. I don't know what that said or what, but let's move along. So, what happened last time on Mushoku Tensei? Well, ya boy, Rudius, got captured by some beasts, and those beasts put him in a cage floating in the sky, and had a hot lady deliver food and splash water on him, which some people have pointed out in the comments is something that they understand because it's cats, and they're like, this is the great punishment that we all hate so much, is being splashed with cold water. That's what it is. It's like spray bottle on a cat, which is fantastic and very goofy and very funny, and I like it very much. Anyway, they put him in this place, and he spent a few days just sitting there doing nothing, feeling sorry for himself. Not really feeling sorry for himself, but just wondering what he would be able to do to get out of this circumstance, and having some faith and trust in his companions, but not that much. Eventually some shit went down. We met Geese, who I'm very suspicious of, and I don't know. I mean, I just don't know. I don't know what's up with that. I think he's Kishirika, or somehow related in some way, because it's not just that his fingernails are dirty, they're black. They're like black, and so what the fuck is, I don't know. And then the idyllic village life that we see gets interrupted by colonializing, modern westernized pirate invaders, essentially. And they bring all the destruction into the previously peaceful village. I've got some qualms with the way that that's represented, but overall as a storyline, makes perfect sense. Also indicates that we have just stepped foot into a much larger sociopolitical type of problem that we were already part of in the past, given the Boreas' tendency toward beastkin servants. So we'll have to see as we move along, given the context of the end of last episode, where Lord Soros himself gets his head popped right off by what seemed to be some intriguing political machinations that will begin building up at home. By the way, that's a classic story, is that the protagonist leaves the household and immediately things start going wrong inside the household. So when the protagonist returns, they return to a house full of snakes and serpents, you might say. It's the Odysseus story. As far as old stories go, that's a pretty old one, is the guy who leaves his house for a righteous conquest. Not that the war in Troy was righteous, but Odysseus's honor was the thing that he went out to fight for, right? He was fighting for somebody else's purposes, and he got sucked into this ill-informed war and all this stuff, but his personal goal was just to get home to his wife and family, and he returns to find his home and all of his power taken away, and his wife being abused by suitors, essentially, and hemmed in, and his house is being destroyed, and he has to do some stuff about it. And, well, Odysseus goes in and he murders all of them. Like, all of them, which is some shit, and maybe we've evolved past that a little bit in terms of the way that we deal with conflicts at home, but we're in that frame of reference for Rudy has gone away, and now things are changing back at home in ways that might not be good for him, or for Eris, or for any of their stability and authority in this world, and that's pretty cool. But they're now a part of this whole beastkin thing, and so I expect as we move into this episode titled Peaceful Life or Quiet Life in the Doldea Village, that we will find out more about the life in the Doldea Village, how quiet it is, and how quiet it is not, and why. And so there's some framing stuff that we have to talk about in that context, and we will do so in the comments discussion. But in the case that I might remove the comments discussion out, I want to frame something very clearly. Or attempt to. I made some statements about the way that this idyllic village in the forest is portrayed as a place of great abundance and lack of conflict, and I believe, and I will stand by those statements. The reason is not because this particular portrayal is that, but instead because this is one example of an overall very frequent portrayal of Aboriginal or traditional or tribal peoples, which is what we see here. They are technologically, as far as we have seen, not that advanced, although there's magic in this world, so it's different, right? I understand that it's different, but in broad archetypal, broad brushstroke generalizations, they are a natural people who is better integrated with nature than the Western civilizations that we have seen, and we showed their society as being semi-idyllic. Again, all of the women are well put together and attractive. There's no sickness, none. We see no sickness whatsoever, no illness, no poor, no poverty. When we see the people fishing and working with food, they have immense abundance of fish, immense abundance of meats, immense abundance of vegetables and fruit. And that is not accurate to the way that hunter-gatherer tribal societies actually run. And I know because I've met some people from them in the Amazon fucking rainforest and spoken to them, or at least spoken through a translator to them. Because we went with a guide who was half Aboriginal and half Ecuadorian. And we went out and we talked to some of the more westernized tribes that are living out there. Like, these are not the true disconnected peoples that you can find in the deep rainforests, or that you can find in like Papua New Guinea and the true bush peoples of Australia, and the true tribes of Africa that still remain. These small bastions of true wild humanity that do exist out in the world in places. These were not those. These were far more integrated with westernization, but they were still living out in the fucking rainforest with none of the amenities of daily life, and so it was very interesting to meet them. And they've got some problems. They've got some serious problems, and the societies that they live in run to some degree, but to say that they run like this is false. It's just false. They get disease, and they get killed by animals, and they get killed by malaria, and they get sick, and when they come into contact with Western civilizations, they get fat and addicted to alcohol really fast, because a lot of Aboriginal peoples, the Native American peoples, have this issue. They have a chemical difference in their bodies that I don't know enough to explain, but their relationship to drugs and alcohol ends up being very different than others, and there are biological reasons for it. So there are all these layers of things that go on in these societies that aren't expressed in the broad archetypal terms of happy land-living people who live in the forest, which is the imagery that we get. We get a picture of idyllic abundance that is only ever marred by the incursion of Western civilization as pure colonial destructiveness. And I don't think that's an accurate portrayal of the circumstances that face real tribal peoples and real living off the land type of peoples. I also brought up infant mortality as an important indicator, and somebody responded to me indicating that the United States has high infant mortality, and that's simply not the case. The infant mortality rate is like 5 point something per thousand, which is higher than a number of other better developed countries, like some of the Scandinavian countries have it in the 1.1 range, which is amazing. But the global average is in the 22 to 30 range per thousand infants dying, versus 5 in the United States. Like, it's not the same. It's not the same. And I'm not trying to say that the United States is great, but like, civilized cultures have lower infant mortality than cultures who live in nature and don't have medical care. It's just simple. Now, in this circumstance like this, that's a little different because there's magic. And so none of those things work in this world, and that's fine. But this world doesn't account for this archetypal representation of people who live off the land, because you see this type of representation all over the place. And I expressed that feeling poorly. What this is one representation of a bigger representation of an idea or ideal that occurs very frequently in Western societies, which is that life would be so much better if we just lived communally off the land. And the thing is, I'm very close to that idea and ideal because my father went and did it for over a decade during his life, and effectively almost wasted a huge chunk of his life living in communal farm systems in the United States, because we had a large period in the 1960s, 70s, and not really into the 80s, but 1960s and 70s, where a lot of people disenfranchised by the systems, feeling like they were running away from the draft or running away from the war-torn politics and social norms of the world, went and they formed and founded communes to go live off the land. And they didn't go so well in general. Most of them don't exist anymore, and there are reasons for that, like significant and specific reasons for that. But I think that this tendency to think of a less technologically developed life as being an ideal is a grass is greener sort of problem, where people who live in technology really look at nature and go, wow, wouldn't it be so great to live in the forest and not have to deal with any of these honking horns and stuff. But the people who are living in the forest are dying of malaria, and they're looking at the technological utopia that exists, or dystopia, depending on your perspective, and going, gosh, wouldn't it be great to have running water? So paint pictures of primitive societies as idyllic with care is what I would say, because I think that there are things that we can absolutely learn from primitive societies, and even just using the word primitive is foolish, but they are primitive comparatively. They have less development. It's what it means. It's not meant to be derogatory, even if it ends up being. I'm sorry if it feels that way. That's not what I intend. And I know that people use the word like primitive societies to be dismissive of people that are just not what they agree with, and that's not what I'm trying to do. Again, I've interacted with these people, and they clearly have some shit figured out about the way that they live their lives, because very infrequently do they kill themselves, and people in civilized nations do more frequently. And it seems like the more civilized a nation is, the more likely people are to give up and come into a full level of contempt for being. And the more attached to nature and their surroundings and their environment and their tribe and their ecosystem people are, the less likely they seem to be taken over by that feeling that I call contempt for being, which I imagine as a psychic plague or a parasite that is within all of us and is spread out between all of us. So there are some elements that are good about societies like this, or peoples who are living off the land like this, and there are things about the way that they live and the way that they work together that we could absolutely learn from. But painting them as perfect and ideal, except when society, like Western cultures, come and steal from them, and that's the only source of harm, seems to be just faulty and fraught. But it's also just the first impression that we get of Doldea Village from an outsider's perspective, Rudius is. And so he might be only seeing that perspective. And what we might get in an episode titled The Quiet Life in Doldea Village, we might get a revelation that the outside quiet life is in no way the way that things actually are here. But I'd be surprised if we really hone in on whether these people are rife with disease or other problems or other issues. But I bet that in this episode we will find out that all of the Beast People's problems come from essentially the invading colonizers, the invading colonizers. It seems to be and theft and thieves and stuff, and that's an echo of the enslavement of many Aboriginal peoples over the course of history, and that's a real thing that has really happened, and it's good to echo it in stories. But it's such an important event in our history that I want to make sure, to some extent, that the representations that are haphazardly thrown out there in a piece of fictional media are at least to some degree representative of the issues that actually occurred in our real world, and don't just paint this incredibly detrimental and problematic piece of many cultures' histories, because many cultures have enslaved other cultures since the very beginning, and many cultures have been enslaved since the very beginning. Egypt, Israelites, like classic ancient stories. I'd like to make sure that we touch on those stories with a little bit of care, because if we just say that it was, we explain it as like, well, people lived in peace and harmony and then the white man came, is like, that's not quite it. That's not quite accurate. That is one perspective that is true, but it's not the whole picture, okay? So I hope that I've done an okay job of expressing this effectively. I don't know if I have. Please call me out if you feel like I have not expressed it effectively, and then grapple with the ideas, because I'm happy to clarify anything that I've mistakenly spoken. I only get one chance at speaking this out. It's not like when I'm writing something down and I can write it out and cut it and edit it and rewrite it and edit it. I'm just sort of speaking, and I'm doing so as quickly as I can, and so I will be flawed in my presentation about the flaws in the presentation, okay? So you can call those out, and you can call those out with or separately from specific criticisms of the ideas that I present, but if you could separate the criticisms of the way that they're presented from the ideas that are actually there and ask clarifying questions, I would be happy to try to answer those and clarify as best as I can what I mean. So there's that piece, at least, of the comment spotlight, and saying that there. And so that's something that I expect to come into next episode, is some exposition about the state of affairs for beast folk all over the world, and specifically in Doldea Village, and what they feel like is going on, and getting a very different picture of the world from different people who see the world in different ways, which is an important lesson for Rudy to have, right? He's been learning over the course of the show to put himself outside of himself and put himself in the shoes of other people. In the shoes of people who are as different from him as it gets, who are female, who are women, who are older than him, who are different races, spurds, totally different, who are from different backgrounds and see the world in different ways. And the start of that was that he started to see the world in different ways because he died and was reborn, right? And so that sparked his process of being able to empathize and see things from other people's perspectives and literally walk a mile in someone else's shoes. And that's what he's been doing ever since. And so to do that he's got the perspective of the nobles who use beast folk as servants, and maybe they're good in the way that they do it. We don't have much indication that the Boreas are the worst. In fact, we have many indications that they're at least trying to make the beast folk that are their servants have a semi-mutualistic relationship, but it's super fraught, and we know that Soros is fucking servants constantly, or was until he got his head removed, so it's hard to say where the moral justification lies, if at all, and it might not anywhere. Because the whole thing might be completely corrupt top to bottom, and the Boreas may be attempting to reduce corruption, but they may be actually just buying into some of the layers of corruption in order to do so, and that could be a problem. In any case, we were here in Doldea Village, and then the corrupt colonizers attacked. Gallus turned out to be a bad boy, and he showed up to murder a bunch of people and steal all the children. Great. Excellent. Also did some groping and things. Mostly it seemed just to piss off the people who were watching, which was interesting as an element. And we had some good fighting and some of that like fighting together sort of bonding thing that we get from some of the major beast folk fighters, and with Rudius actually helping as well, and a demonstration in multiple levels of good faith that eventually leads to the reunion with Ruijerd and Eris, which, now that I've gone back through and I've rewatched it during editing and elsewhere, is so spectacular how happy she is as she's expounding on how awful their journey was, and she's just so delighted to see Rudius and so delighted to talk about all these challenges that they've overcome together and all this stuff. It's very cute and very well done, I think. And so I want that statement. The show is very cute and very well done to massively outweigh and overweigh any of the criticisms that I'm making about the representations of Doldea Village, because it's really not that big a deal, and I'm only nitpicking it because the show has been so consistently good at literally everything that when one thing stands out to me as, or one thing pops out to me as something that might be a mistaken interpretation or might be a limited representation of a more complicated concept, when most of the representations that we've gotten of these complicated concepts by Rifujin have been extraordinarily deeply layered. So that one element really stands out to me as like a dark mark on a white page, is like, ooh, there's this one thing that rankles me. But in context, stepping back and looking at the broader picture, it's utterly minor. And we could even hand wave it as narrative convenience if we'd like to, and that's totally convincing to me. So I don't mind it that much, and we don't need to argue about it that much, but I wanted to say my piece about it because it became clear to me as I received comments back that I hadn't been very clear in my expression of my thoughts around the issue. And so now, hopefully, in the broad brushes that I have, that I've been using, I've been able to express more concisely a little bit what I mean about this representation of an idyllic, naturalistic village society being representative of many different interpretations of such a society. For example, you see representations like this in Pocahontas, and you see representations of this in like Pocahontas-style stories, like Avatar, right? Where the people who live in nature just live in perfect, beautiful harmony, and nothing ever goes wrong. And that's not it, because the world is dog-eat-dog as fuck, and the statistical murder and mortality rates among tribal and like big quotes primitive societies are way high, like really high. And so I don't know if idealizing them in this sort of a context is the best move, but it might be, and I'm willing to be proven wrong. Okay, that's the whole spiel. Now, comment spotlight. Hape Pape writes, I feel like it's worth noting that Rudy has never killed a person, so his hesitation for combat makes sense from that perspective. It also makes sense given his reactions to dead people in the past fights that he's been in. Makes sense. When fighting someone that's as skilled as Gallus, incapacitating isn't as easy as it would be against mooks. So my interpretation of the scene where Rudy lets Gallus past him is that at least to some extent Rudy is steeling himself for the chance that he'll have to kill someone. I can't imagine his aversion to killing would be something easy to overcome for someone with modern sensibilities, especially from a relatively peaceful place like Japan. Of course, there's no doubt he's scared with it being a fight for his life against a truly skilled opponent as well, one with a hostage foo, no less. Yeah, this tracks to me, that he's steeling himself for the chance. I also think that in this circumstance, it's very much that the person has a hostage and Rudy is not in any way convinced that he can attack the guy and win without the hostage being in specific and distinct danger. Because as soon as an opportunity presents itself and there's a slight distraction in Gallus, Rudy is ready to act immediately and does so. And so does the other guy, right? Like they jump on it immediately as soon as the opportunity is presented. So it's like, I feel like it's the hostage being there that is Rudy being like, I would be willing to kill Gallus, maybe, and he might have to steel himself for it, but I think he'd be willing, but he's not willing to cause the child to die in the process of doing that because that would reflect on him, or something like it. Dynamite96, I like this comment a lot, man. I really like this comment a lot. I always found this to be one of the most important episodes in regard to Rudius's development as a human being. While Rudius has in the past been heroic or selfless on multiple occasions, protecting Sylphie from bullies, saving Eris from slavers, most of his instances of heroism are tinged by a pretty marked degree of self-interest, exactly, or what's best for his own interests in that situation. And we've been expressing this explicitly because we had exactly that. He waited too long because he thought it would be in his self-interest to wait for the others to fight and die, and they fucking died, and it's his fault. So that's interesting. I think him fighting Gallus to save the Beastkin is the first instance of him doing something selfless in a situation where, from a purely rational perspective, it would benefit him far more to simply walk away. He doesn't, and his reward is not only recognition and forgiveness for perceived misdeeds, but also genuine gratitude, right? He acts properly in the world, and the world arrays itself in front of him as though he had acted properly, which is correct. I think this is the point where Rudius realizes that doing good things feels good, even beyond any schemes of self-interest or advancement. I agree, however, I'd like to rephrase this, which is that even if you are solely interested in the self, I think altruism is the best way to be selfish. Because it leads to the most benefits for the self. Because it leads to your primary gain now and in the future because you form relationships with other people. So the most effective selfish action you can take is actually the selfless action in most cases. Because it leads to the most benefit for you, selfishly, to be selfless. All you have to do, it's like when we talk a lot in the cyberpunk issues about the profit motive and stuff like that. It's like the profit motive, if it were properly aligned, would work great because the most profitable thing is to be fair. Actually, you get this in rats. So rats play and they wrestle, and rats who wrestle. Usually, if you put a bigger rat with a littler rat, well, the bigger rat's capable of winning the wrestling every dang time. But rats who win the wrestling every dang time don't live very long because the other rats stop wanting to play with them. And so a rat that's bigger and well-adjusted will let the other rat win a percentage of the time because it enables them to continue playing the game of the wrestling. That's some interesting shit. Okay, so socially, from a base level, from the level of rats, which are not that dissimilar from us, we're very smart rats, or rats are very dumb people, you might say. There's a distinct and transcendental difference between consciousness and the awareness of a rat, but still, to just win continuously is not mutualistic. To be selfish in the desire for immediate gratification in winning is not effective. That selfishness leads to an unselfish outcome, a bad outcome. The best behavior for the bigger rat is to let the littler rat win a percentage of the time, like a third of the time or something like that. And then the littler rat will keep playing. And then the littler rat gets the chance to learn better how to wrestle, and the bigger rat gets the opportunity to continue practicing their wrestling, and they form a social bond, and they get to continue playing into the future. And that's all the way to be. So selflessness is the best, most selfish action you can take. And if you believe that, then you can convert all of your selfish behaviors into selfless behaviors because you know that selflessness will reflect into selfishness. That's the fundament of a lot of the like basic teachings of the people who wrote down the teachings of Christianity. which I don't know if they're real or whatever, but a lot of them say stuff along the lines of, the best thing that you can do for yourself is give everything away. And people are like, that doesn't make any fucking sense. Well, it does, because you just have to trust in society to take what you've given away and reflect it back to you more. It's also the foundation of the way that I do my work. I give away all my information for free and I ask people to pay me for it. And they do. So sometimes the selfless action is the most effective selfish action. And once you learn that, you can adjust to society effectively, I think, or something like it, which is fucking cool. It's fucking cool. BE2EO. Living in harmony with nature is always a myth. The natural world is a constant battle for resources amongst its inhabitants, where other inhabitants constitute some of those resources. Nasty brutish in short. For example, the river scene at 4513 looks ideal, but I bet those fish are having a bad day. As Richard Dawkins puts it, nature is not cruel, only pitilessly indifferent. The total amount of suffering per year in the natural world is beyond all decent contemplation. Oh yeah, all the bugs. It's no wonder we humans have spent most of our history trying to get as far removed from nature as possible. Yeah, because nature is chaos and death and destruction, and it tears you apart, actually. It's entropy, all the time. Although we do enjoy watching it from a safe vantage point. 100% agree. Johann Bowers says, I'm also pretty sure all those fish are not just for the village. They are not removed from the rest of the continent and probably do trade with the human regions nearby. All that surplus abundance goes somewhere eventually. I would wonder if it does. It may, but the point that I was making is that it's an absurd amount of abundance that sort of demonstrates that this world for these people is like really abundant and really good in nature for them. And that's the exact opposite of what I've seen in those tribal societies that I've done any research on or been in contact with, is that it's a constant day by day life or death struggle to make ends meet and to pound enough poorly nutritious grains into mush that you can survive and your babies don't die, is like the challenge. And maybe you get to hunt one monkey every couple of weeks, or like one rodent every couple of weeks and survive a little bit. And then you go and you pull grubs and bugs from the bark of trees and the rotting vegetation around you, and you figure out ways to eat those because they have some of the proteins that you desperately need in order to survive, but you're barely making it. Rarely, I think, in those situations and civilizations is there this kind of grand abundance, because to be fair, to be quite frank, if there was grand abundance, the people would be capable of pulling themselves out of the poverty of their continued existence in a more natural way. And there is not continued abundance, and so they can't sit around and invent things, which is seemingly the difference. Because when you invent agriculture and herdsmanship, when you have the ability to domesticate livestock and animals and to domesticate plants and turn them into consistent and regular sources of food, you don't have to worry about your food supply 24 hours out of every day, all day. You don't have to worry about it all the time because you can put it away a little bit. You can work really hard at one point in order to have much more time to not work hard, and that's really quite valuable. Mastin. I never made that connection with the black fingernails. Holy shit. I have no idea if that's a real connection or not, but it's cool to see something I've never caught before in this show. Yeah, I got no clue. I mean, I just threw it out there. I think it's something, but I don't know. I also want to make a call out that I think is really important. This show is one of the very few in all of anime where we see male presenting nipples, and consistently drawn. In pretty much every frame where there should anatomically be a male presenting nipple, it's been drawn, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is the case for every male presenting character we've seen so far. I probably sound like a crazy person, but it is honestly a form of representation that I super appreciate. It's no secret that anime viewership is wildly dominated by straight cis men, which is why you see so many shows with women as focus, yeah. Sexually or otherwise, yep. I mean, there's Fujoshi stuff and yaoi stuff, but it doesn't get animated as much. It gets drawn more frequently and turned into manga. I think part of that is because women are more attuned to verbalized and literate media than they are to visual media. That's just a fundamental truth. I don't remember where the studies that I've read that are in, but it's an undeniable correlative broad generalization with lots of overlap. Okay, did I waffle enough? Which is that by and large, men are more visually focused than women, especially sexually. It's why men watch more porn than women, and women read more erotic fiction than men. It's just true. It's just true. I mean, go into the erotic fiction section of any bookstore and find how many of those books are made for men, and it's like none. And then go into the erotic imagery section of any porn store and see how much of that is made for men. All of it. Almost none of it is made for women. And the attempts that people have made to make pornography for women mostly just appeal to men. Although there are women who are more visual and there's overlap. It's big Venn diagrams, right? It's broad strokes and they overlap. But in general, absolutely true. So it's no secret that anime viewership is wildly dominated by straight cis men. It's a visual medium. That makes perfect sense, which is why you see so many shows with women as a focus, sexually or otherwise. As a result, any accurate depiction of male physicality, sexual, anatomical, or otherwise, has become not exactly taboo, but very much poorly received. Yeah, and the lack of anatomical knowledge has become very, very much poorly received. Again, you look at Baki, and while the anatomy and the drawing of physicality that the Baki author does is insane and fantastic, and there are a lot of authors that draw insane muscle-bound monsters, they're insane muscle-bound monsters that have very little relation to the way that men actually look, unless you're only looking at yoked-out, test-fueled porn stars, which is what most porn stars are actually, is yoked out and on a large quantity of hormones in order to produce a visual appearance, right? Give that whatever label you want, but it is undeniably there, for sure. So whenever I see a show that takes enough care to draw proper male-presenting nipples, I like to call it out, partly for praise and partly to normalize it. TLDR, equal opportunity fan service, and nipples for all. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It seems fine to me. It does make some people uncomfortable. All sexual expression makes some people uncomfortable. I was recently told by a roommate that he is made uncomfortable by having men walk around the house with their shirts off. This was during the summer, and it gets hot here, and so I have a habit of doing that. I'm also quite proud of my body, and I'm becoming attuned with being proud of my body, as my body has become something to be proud of. And I need to make a video that is like just showing where I'm at, because I'm at a place where that's like, I look at myself and I'm like, wow, how the fuck? And I'd like to tell you how the fuck, because a lot of the time you look at people who have a body that you might want and they lie about how they got there, and I'd like to be really honest about how I got here. And how I got here is achievable as far as I can tell by almost anybody. And here is not where I'm gonna be, but it's like, it's a pretty good place to be. It's not my end game or my end goal, but it's a pretty good place to be. And I see a lot of people who could benefit from heading in a direction like the one that I've headed in, because my overall well-being and mental acuity and general ability and feeling of physical confidence and ability to be resilient under strain, literal like weight loading strain, as well as just the strain of the world, is immense compared to a number of the people that I meet who don't do the things that I do in terms of trying to optimize their physical systems. And it seems to work. And gosh, if what a proposition. If you could put in a few % of effort and you wouldn't have to hurt all the time, that would be really nice, because you're going to get older and you're going to start hurting all the time in 1,000 different ways. And you can stave it off through your own, through pain, through suffering. By choosing a little bit of pain now, you can choose to not suffer into the future, and that's really cool. Anyway, I need to do a video where I show, maybe I'll do like the presidential fitness exam or something, and I'll show where I'm at physically, like all of my health markers, and maybe even go through my test results from the doctor that I got recently and show where I'm at in all my health results, and just sort of do it as a proof that's like, this is what my body's doing, and this is what I'm doing to it, and this is what results. And then show a video of me like showing where I'm at physically and doing some pull-ups and push-ups and squats and things, and just being like, this is what I've achieved. And then in a couple of years when I'm like 1,000,000 miles beyond where I am now, because that's where I plan to be, it'll be fun to be able to look back and compare and have a legitimate like well done comparison, because if I can only rep out like 12 pull-ups now and in the future I'm able to do like 90, that would be crazy to find out. That'd be really cool. So I plan to do that in the future at some point. I don't know where I'll put it or how I'll do it, but that seems important. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So I think that's it for the comments discussion. That was pretty relatively short. There were some interesting ones on the episode, but the episode wasn't the most complicated that we've had all over. This one might be more so. We'll see. So a relatively short comments discussion all in all, and it was a relatively short video all in all anyway, so that makes perfect sense to me. Let's go ahead and move on toward episode 15 of Mushoku Tensei. I've got the episode up, and I'm going to redo a timer. Hold on. All right, there we go. Done with comments discussion as far as I'm concerned. Let's head into episode 15 itself. I've got the episode up and ready to go. There will be two versions, picture-in-picture in the description, timer on YouTube, as always. Head over to the Patreon and check out whether you'd like to support this channel. The content that I'm making, I think, is something of value, and I give it away for free. And you can have it for free with absolutely no shame from me. But if you'd like to support the process of me giving away content for free, and you enjoy the content that I'm producing, and you'd like to reflect to the world that it has some value, and perhaps encourage the production of more of it, please drop me $1 or $5 or something in the Patreon. It makes an immense difference, and it's the only reason that I can survive. So thank you immensely to all of the people who are already doing so, and thank you for even considering the possibility of doing so. I'll also say that I just enabled annual memberships, so if you'd like to, you can go and pay, it's 10% off, so you can go and pay, I think, like $11 and get membership for voting as a first level patron, a committee patron for a year for like $11, if you'd like to do that. I don't know if that seems appealing to people, but it might be. Likewise, it would be $60 total for a full year, $5 per month, and then it would come down to $54 total because it's like 10% off for if you go annually. So if you'd like, if that sounds like an appealing thing to you, that would be cool. And I don't know whether it'll work or be interesting, but an influx of like lump sum currency is a dangerous thing because it means less sustainable income over time. But it might enable me to have some wiggle room in terms of making crucial purchases in the moment, and I'll make sure that I decide those based on Patreon polls and figure out what is worthwhile to purchase. There's been some discussion around potentially having two computer systems, one far less advanced than the one that I currently use, because I use a relatively expensive and powerful computer setup, although it's getting old, and very scarily so, because it might all just go out, right? Like CPUs just die sometimes, and that's terrifying. But to have another computer system so that I could, for example, record another video while rendering a video, because the rendering process might take an hour and a half, and that's time that I can't do anything on my computer. So if I were able to separate that out into multiple computer systems, it would enable so much time. I would get so much time back that it would be absurd. So maybe having some wiggle room to make purchases in that direction, even purchasing like the bare bones of an inexpensive secondary PC for just the purposes of intaking information, because it doesn't take that much processing power to record. It takes a lot of processing power to render, and being able to split those two things out into two computers might be magic. I had the idea last night and it was like, whoa, that could really open the door for me. I don't know. Anyway, consider supporting the channel. Consider supporting as an annual membership if that seems interesting to you, or let me know what you think might be useful in terms of the channel and what you'd be willing to pay for. I don't know. I really don't want to paywall my content. I think that's wrong. I think even early accessing it, there are problems that I have with that, and it doesn't feel perfectly, absolutely ethical, but it's as close as I've been able to come, and I think it works okay. So if you support the process that I'm in and the hopefully exploitation-free way in which I'm creating content and exploiting only, and by exploit I don't mean negatively, I mean just to use in fullness, exploiting only my own abilities and my own willingness to work, that seems fair to me, and I'd love it if the world reflected whether that was fair. And so far it's doing so, and it seems to be working, so nice. So check out the Patreon. We're ready to go. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's get into it. Beep beep timer for Mushoku Tensei episode 15. Eris playing with kids. Sa vi su. Oh boy. That is... Is he watching? Yeah, he is. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Oh! You're fucked, bro. That is not it. Hi! My lord, what are you doing? Yeah, people watching. Wow, they can just smell it. No, no, no. He's playing the, like, Albert role with Batman. Uh-huh. Wow. Which one is his daughter? I forget. Is it the floppy-eared one with the big taters? I think so. It might be the scanny one, too. Okay, so we're in a typhoon-level rainstorm. And we're just frolicking in the water, right? Like, no flaws, nothing is melting. Oh, she has aged. Holy shit. Ooh! Burb, why are you flying? It is wet. Stop it. Burb, stop flying in the rain. Stop it. Go sit in your nest, idiot. Go be a good burb. Hmm. Hi. Oh wow, he's still locked up? Wow. That's not nice. Abundance for the guests, at least. But no, it's abundance all over. Watching her with kids, yeah. Watching other people interact happily is good. And you had a hand in generating it, so that's good. Very cool, very cool. Two. Who's that voice actress? She's not Moogie, is she? Yeah, because she was so unwilling to learn. Yeah, what do you want, Spirit Beast? What's that ring? Who gave that to her? He knows Ghislaine. Ghislaine. Yay, there it is. I was waiting for that. Nani? Maybe she was. Oh, it's the ring for Paul. For keeping wolves away. She's his sister. Right? She's his sister. Nani? What have I done? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Oh, because she ran away. She refused to take over Dad's candle making business. She refused. And is a disgrace to our family. Because he doesn't understand why she left. But I'll bet I understand why she left. I'll bet it has to do with the enslavement of their people, and she's working with the Boreases to fight against it to some degree. I'll bet that's what it is. I'll bet that by betraying them, she is actually following the path. Hoa! How dare you? Ghislaine's my friend. Woo! Hello. Sorry. Gross. Bonk. Hero. She's a hero to her. Damn, Eris. Nani? Yeah, I can't believe it. Physical touch. There we go. It's important. Yeah, why do people treat her unfairly, man? There's clearly some context that we're missing. So we gotta figure out some differences. Boy, maybe we should talk to you and you should tell your story about who Ghislaine was. And he's like, impossible. But he trusts Rudy a little bit, so maybe he's not a fool. Maybe there's something going on. That's so cool. This is great. Way better than I expected. Because it becomes personal. Yeah, the red eyes. And she saves them, yeah. And so now our focus goes outside the self. And we can't stay here forever. Good. I thought that was actually said explicitly, but I guess I just inferred it and didn't realize. It's a thin view, but... Oh wow, and they're speaking in Japanese. No, grow up, be like Ghislaine. Yeah, not everybody's built to climb trees, man. Tradition versus exploration, and everyone's just like that. Empathy, eye to eye. Yeah. Yaksu. Connection. Well, she enabled you for the sword practices. There you go, the calluses that are the most prized possession. Because her ability is her most prized thing. Capacity. Ooh, can it inspire her to love the thing that she hates? Trust. Do it. Do it! Yeah, forehead to forehead, face to face. It's funny, we don't have the Imaishi furrowed brow thing back and forth, but it's the same scene. Hard cut to I don't want to do anymore. Yeah, and he's listening the whole damn time. But Dad will be mad at me if I start doing the thing that he wants me to do anyway. Yeah, she's bad. Wow. It's a great scene though. Okay. So now she's doing it on her own. Cause you were telling her to. That's how kids work. Sword Gang. Yeah, there you go. Whoa, what? Yes. Your representation of this person is flawed. You can't see them. Impossible. Masaka bakana. People are capable of change. Even as a fundamental. Rudy has come to believe that, and he didn't believe that before. That's really interesting. He just expressed that without anybody telling him to. People can change. Whoa! 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 Holy shit, cat instincts! Cat reflexes are bullshit! That's fucked up, man. Oh! Fucking puppy girls. Oh, it's the 3 months cut. Wow, okay. No, you won't. Good luck. Ha ha. And their English or their Japanese has improved immensely. And then what? That's what... You're moving on. The temptation to safety. No. She knows it can't be that way. Hey, daijoubu da. Now kith. Now kith. That's... She knows, and she's scared of it. She doesn't want you to leave. It's attachment anxiety. Yeah. Oh, still working on it, figuring out a better picture of him. How dare you assault the sacred beast? Finally. Oh, hello. Oh, it will journey forth with a hero. I'm not aroused by the sacred beast. But they think that he's getting on top of the animal, which would be a... Oh, it might be getting aroused by you, though. Uh-oh. Are they fighting for real? Yeah, they're fighting for real. Catfight! She wants her to stay. Jesus. Whew. Wow, damn you, dude. Yeah, because you didn't beat the shit out of her. You'd kill her. We've seen Eris, like, punch people across rooms. Her own representation. No! No. I hate her anyway. I don't want to be friends. Shit. She's gonna regret it forever if she doesn't see them off, so we'll have that moment here. Yeah, of course. Alright, sure, girl. Yeah, are you sure you want to leave it this way? Oh, we're doing good parenting thing. How did you feel about the thing? What caused you to change your feeling about the thing? Go back and express why you care about the person. Right. She already had the eye, though. So wouldn't learn to speak properly? She was fully feralized. So she wasn't socialized. That's what that means. That's the sword god. Yes, it was, to reach out to her. Yep. Yeah. Good revelation. Part on good terms if you can. You'll regret it forever. Is that the sword? No, I don't know what that was. Hippity hop. Now will the beast come and decide to come with? And what about Geese? Where's Geese? You should think about it too. They're gonna run into each other. He's gonna convince her to go out, and he's gonna convince the other one to go out, and they'll run into each other in the rain or something. Oh! Well, here it goes. Yeah, let's go ahead and leave them for some time. Doop, doop, doop. Oh, just casually walking away, not here at all. Yeah, sneak up on a warrior. That's a good idea. Fucking hell. It's not like I want to make up with you or anything, Baka. Apologize first. And then, reciprocal apology, right? Even from Eris? I think that there was something in that apology that was forgive me. And she says, Shikata 9 to that. I would expect a reciprocal apology, but fair enough. Okay, and so they bond, and we get a stack of frogs on top of each other. An odd harmony. Okay, sunlight is here. Will Doggy come with? Because Doggy's bound to Rudy. Little frog's watching, very good. Yeah, we totally ignored Rudyard. Not really? Yeah, totally missed it. Totally missed Rudyard forming a deep relationship with a powerful person. Yeah, bro, sure. That's a lot. Alright. Hugging frogs. Alright, froggies. Now, we still aren't showing Eris's face. She's still... There it is! A gift for Ghislaine? Something to give her or show her? Oh, way more interesting. Let's go! Yeah, let's go, Eris. Prove it, prove it, prove it. Iwayo, indeed. Alright, so this is our battle scene for the episode. We're gonna put our Sakuga here? Bruh. Bruh. Yes. Oh, that's so rad. And we did reverse shot wrong, or like correctly wrong. That's cool. Go. Not now, but like whenever it goes. Oh, there, yeah. Oh, we're gonna do a one strike? Does his sword break? Here? Yeah, nobody understands. Can we get a slow-mo? Can we get a slow-mo, please? Dude, were there like 20,000 strikes within that whole thing? Probably. With the ring on the hand. So he won that bout. They're speaking a language that you don't get. But it's just like Rudyard with the chief. He doesn't understand how they formed that bond, but they did. He doesn't understand how they just bonded through the fight, but they did. Wow, that's really good. Oh, and he's got the little thing. That's cute. Oh, he's got two of them. Empty and gray, Rudyard. Perfect. Okay, on to the wild blue yonder. The great unknown, and Eris gets to feel the feel, yeah. Yes? Okay. We can honeymoon here once we get married. Yeah, there it is, finally! Thank you! They let you go? Dude, you're an outlaw now. No, I kid. I think he's going to anywhere. Sure, geese. Sure. I'm just gonna watch you. Constantly. Like a hawk. New town? Oh. The holy country. Magic exists. Great power. I don't know if I would dismiss it so quickly, dude. How does fucking Geese know everything? Ugh. Yeah. Alright, I don't care. I'll do, because it's a great ideal to hold up on high. But you've never competed, so you don't know. You've never competed, so you don't know. For sure. Fair enough. Wasn't it... Was one of them Demon God? That's not what Kishirika is, because she's the Emperor, right? We'll see. I don't think that works. T-1 episode until you take on one of them. Okay. ED, and then episode title for the next episode. And we get to find out something from the next episode title. Woo! That was a juicy episode. I'm surprised by how juicy that was in terms of interpersonal relationships and stuff. Really, really solid. Really cool. And next time will be... family squabble. So as we head back into civilization, the only thing that I could imagine that being... Well, I doubt that it's the family squabble in Rudy's family. I would expect that it would be the family... Well, it is still Rudy's family. The family squabble in Eris's family, because that's what we had set up in the last episode. And that seems to make sense to me. Very cool episode. A lot of stuff about friendship. A lot of stuff about life. A lot of stuff about existence. And a lot of it in a pretty cool way. There are some things that I want to directly check first. In the same way that I wanted to directly check about the hands and stuff, and the fingernails and things, I want to see the moment here. And I'm pretty sure that there's no frame of being capable of seeing what actually happens. They both swing at each other, they go past each other, it's a big flash of light, they zip past each other, and that's all. There's no indication of how we would expect them to win, and I think that's the point here, is that they're doing their own stuff that's so far beyond all of our perceptions that as sword masters, they can communicate with each other in this way, in a way that nobody else can understand, which seems to be exactly right. And it seems to me that he is still above the level that Eris is, but Eris is, of course, an apprentice of Ghislaine and not Ghislaine herself. And so there's this indication of like, okay, I'm able to beat you, but kind of only just barely and just by a hair's breadth, by whatever mode they manage to agree upon for this combat. And that's pretty darn good. Okay, let's take it from the top. I think that's important. Oh, I want to go check. I want to see the face of the man who came for Ghislaine, the sword god. Okay, so this guy is probably her mentor in the sword god, and he picks her up and takes her and trains her. He looks so familiar, but that's just because I think his design echoes Gallus to me. Just because he's got the goatee and a scar, it's in a different place. Obviously, it's not Gallus. But I just wanted to check. It's not some easy things that come up to mind where I'm like, I wonder if it's Paul or one of the members of the Grey Rat family or just the dragon guy that we saw before or something like that. And it doesn't seem to be any of those. So I don't think we've met this character. This is just foreshadowing to introduce this character's presence to us. Although we've already introduced him in words by saying that Ghislaine was a student of this sword god guy who is, we learn, one of the 7 most powerful peoples. Which, again, is part of the hierarchy stuff that I so don't care about. I don't care about any of the power system shit. There are a couple of people who come into the comments and are like, it's really important that you understand the different sword styles and stuff. And I'm like, no, it's not. It really doesn't matter at all to my perceptions of the show, as far as I can tell. So I just don't care. You can feel free to continue making those comments, but I don't comment spotlight them or highlight them because I don't find them interesting or valuable. Okay. Rudy's still pervy. And I mean, the scene is Savisu, big time. Eris with so much muscle, and she is muscular. She's got, the abs are popping. And Rudy is doing the horny boy thing, and he gets called on it by these people. You smell of sexual arousal, so that indicates that they can just smell that, which is terrifying. And the threat of the daughter and the good apology, and we get this negotiated space that's a very classic, like, don't fuck with my daughter, and the agreement to do so. So we come to the core of the episode, which is Eris is showing off her swordsmanship, and the others are watching her do it and are enamored by her abilities and stuff. And that will come to a head as we learn where she got those abilities, or as they learn where she got those abilities, and that they are from Ghislaine. And we finally broach the subject of the one crucial and important beast person that we know being from the same village as these other beast people, and figuring out a difference in interpretation and perspective on who that person is and what she's all about. Stupid birds flying in the rain. Stop it, birds. You're just gonna get wet. I know that birds can fly in the rain, but like, ugh. Poor Gallus in a fucking cage. It does make me wonder that when Geese got out, did Gallus get out too? I certainly hope not, but who knows. Abundance continued. There's in no way any indication that there's anything that goes wrong in this civilization except incoming invaders, which is why they had Ruijerd as a casualty, right? Like preventing casualties. So, again, nobody in the village dies unless people come and kill them. Interesting. Now we can chalk that up to healing magic and stuff, but I don't know if that works. And things are working as they should. People are in order. Ruijerd is sitting with the older folks. The younger folks are all sitting together, and they've got the dog behind them, and everybody's in peace and harmony and abundance and doing well. And it's really good. And we see specifically, we watch Eris interacting with younger and more innocent people as though they were siblings or perhaps children. And of course we clock this because watching other people interact with younger people and seeing how they interact is very heartwarming. And it shows growth from Eris's perspective because she's thinking outside of herself, right? And some more things. Ruijerd is trying to train, or Rudius is trying to train the dog. She's trying to teach languages. It's all sort of a similar thing. And him trying to teach numbers to the dog is sort of like her trying to teach all these things to them. Okay, so their names are Tona and Tersena. I want to know who Tersena's voice actress is because I feel like I know who that is. Miku Ito. She's been a bunch of characters that I tangentially recognize, but don't completely recognize. So I guess not. Okay, cool. So proud, so proud. We see the ring, and we bring up the problem. Where'd you get it? I got it from Ghislaine. Ghislaine. And immediately it makes sense. She's your sister. And he goes, well, there's no way that she's a fucking master. That's just impossible. First off, she's still alive. Shocking. I thought she'd be dead in a ditch. Oh, interesting. And then we get the presentation of the framework of his perceptions of what Ghislaine did. She abandoned the Doldia's duty to guard the forest and the sacred beast. She was at odds with her society and chose a different path. Okay, fair enough. What if, by doing what she did, by leaving, she has actually enabled more protection of guarding the forest and the sacred beast? Seems possible. Seems quite plausible to me, even. And this is a story of the family that the children do not know because it is a secret story. It's a shame, right? She fled and she's a disgrace to our people, so we do not speak of her. Well, maybe there's a lesson in her disgrace that is not disgraceful. And then we get, hey, wait, what? And we get an insult to Eris's master, and she will not let that stand. Everybody is shocked by this occurrence, and Eris goes, wait, no, gets up, gets out into the rain, and expresses herself poorly. And emotionally, Ghislaine is my master and I respect her more than anyone. How dare you? You don't understand. You don't understand at all. Also, muscles. Fuck yeah, dude. Getting so strong. Really fast and really strong. She isn't like what you've said at all. She always comes when I call her, and she always saves me. So there's an issue here, which is that Eris's hero worship of Ghislaine is not quite right, but also her brother's dismissal of Ghislaine is not quite right, because Ghislaine has made something of herself. She's a flawed person, yes, but she's also a changing and improved person, so who is worthy of being a master. So we need to bring this together. And he goes, Ghislaine is respected? Impossible. So I'm going to tangent out and bring this into my real life and my real world. One of the people in the household who lives here, the son of the woman who lives here, gets no respect here at all, and honestly has not earned much. To be clear, he admittedly spent a lot of his adolescence as essentially a delinquent and refusing to see the values in any of the things that he was told to see values in, and rejecting a lot of things, and foolhardily rejecting a lot of things. He's got a kid now, and people dismiss him constantly because he's not very good at sacrificing himself for the benefits of others. He just hasn't learned it. He hasn't learned a lot of things, and so he doesn't get any respect in our particular circle. But he goes to work, and as far as we know, he's pretty good at sales. And what happened a couple of months ago is that he invited a couple of his work friends, people who are working on the sales floor with him, over to one of our Friday night hangouts. And they came and they hung out with us, and we talked and listened to music and smoked weed and had beers and stuff. And each and every one of them came into the conversations going, oh, hell yeah, this guy, he's the man. He's taught me everything that I know at my work. He's like helping to run things out there. I respect this guy. And everybody in our little friend group is looking at each other like, who the fuck are they talking about? Because that's not the human being that we know. And so it becomes very clear very immediately that some people have no respect and don't deserve any in certain circles, and then they go out and they're a completely different person in a different context. And part of the reason for that in this circumstance is that every part of my friend's relationship or relationships that happen at this home are colored by his multi-layered, flawed, entirely fraught relationship with his mom that has never been investigated or defragmented to any extent. And so because of the lack of respect in that relationship, there's this spiraling, self-organizing lack of respect around him everywhere in this household that constantly taints his presence and behaviors and being. And only when he's outside of it does he get any of that respect at all. And so seeing those people come into our location and completely view him from a different perspective entirely, and one that is absolutely incompatible with the one that we see, because he does not act like that around us at all. He does not act like somebody who is worthy of being called respectable or a teacher. He's mostly, he acts like a fool, and he refuses to learn. And he doesn't improve in this space. Just like Ghislaine was seen as a fool and a reject, or not a reject, but one who rejected the system that she was in, and an outcast and feral and dangerous in her system, but outside of it has achieved respect. This friend of mine is seen as not worthy of respect, and he acts that out and he behaves that way in the context of this household, but outside of the household in his work environment, he's a star. Really interesting. People are not what you see at all. Not at all. Almost ever. And so that's the process that this guy comes to, and he cannot even fathom it because there's no evidence in his lifespan of it. It's the same circumstances here, but it would be like if the guy left for 8 years or 10 years and whatever, and somebody still had the same opinion of them. This was in the same time frame, right? Like, he's the same human being here and there, and at the same time, he's not deserving of a respect individual who is failing in a lot of ways. And he is a competent worker and competent leader of other people in a different context. And there's no evidence of that. None. Absolutely zero evidence of that in the other behaviors that he has in different locations. Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. He's respected? Impossible. And he says, no, it's just not possible. Impossible. I could not change my mind on this no matter what. So Rudy asks her to drop it, and she turns and says, why? This isn't fair. Don't you like Ghislaine? Why are you on their side? And that's not what it is. He's trying to just calm her down because we're not going to resolve this right now, no matter what. And the level of emotion that we've reached is untenable. She's now said her piece. We've reached the core root of the problem, which is that this guy doesn't believe that that's even possible. Now we need to step back and breathe. It seems like the Ghislaine that we know isn't the same as the Ghislaine they know, and that's really important. People have different viewpoints on other people, and I learned the word for it recently from psychoculturist Ed, who I had a fantastic and fascinating podcast with, which I'll link somewhere, and you should go check it out because it's all about the cool stuff that we've been discussing in Mushoku. It's the same kind of discussion, just between me and another anime reactor talker person who also brings to bear some of the like actual psychological training that I don't have the true basis in terms of direct and legitimate training. I just have the bits that I've been able to self-learn. So we were able to interface and figure out a whole bunch of stuff together, and you should go check it out. But the word for it is parataxic distortion. Eris's only experiences of Ghislaine have been in that mentor relationship where Ghislaine has been acting in particular ways, and so she says, Ghislaine is always like this. And the brother's only interactions with Ghislaine have been in that relationship where she acted ferally and uncouthly and impossibly. And so he goes, that's impossible. She can't be any person outside of the person that I've met. This happens in Discords and comment sections. If someone's really nice to you in the comments, you assume that they're a nice person everywhere, and that's not the case. And if someone's really mean to you in the comment sections, you assume that they're mean to you everywhere, and that's not the case usually. People are usually far more layers than we give them credit for, but we extrapolate out from one instance every instance. And so that's what's going on here is parataxic distortion, and thanks Ed from Psychoculturists for the words for that. It's very helpful. At the very least, I respect her. So we see eye to eye, and he has this moment, and what this face is to me is like, am I wrong? No, impossible. They must be wrong. But wait, what if they're right? It's like, but I trust Rudius, and so Rudius wouldn't be lying to me, I don't think. Fantastic. Unfamiliar ceiling shot, classic. Of course, we're looking up at the ring. We're imagining the moment where it was given to her as protection, and that's all very powerful. And we get these two coming in and directly asking for more information about Aunt Ghislaine, which of course we put together that they're siblings, but hadn't been put together before. She tells the story and they're listening. But Dad always say, no, grow up, be like Ghislaine. So train with sword, train mind. But I not like sword practice. Okay, well, first off, not all fish can climb trees. In fact, most can't. And some people are fish and some people are monkeys. So you might not have to do sword practice. However, swords and the ability to use them are pretty fucking important. So it might behoove you to figure out a way to like sword practice. And often what's going on when you get a person in real life, and I'm extrapolating out from real life, right? Toward real life. Because this is a concept that gets brought up consistently in The Whole Brain Child, that this is a developmental situation when there's something that the person should be doing and they kind of know that they should be doing it, but they've got some boundary between themselves and doing it. And this strikes me as some level of, the word is not trauma, but some level of event that has shaped the idea of what sword practice is for this character into something that she does not like, when in reality, sword practice is something that she would enjoy if she were to pursue it on her own. And part of the issue is that, I think, is we get the answer right after this, is that, that the dad told her over and over to do it, and that's a pretty sure way to get your child to never do the thing. Yeah, so she goes, I not like sword practice, and then she does this smile, and it's sort of like a, what are you gonna do? But she knows that she should like sword practice more, or like that it's important to some extent. But they also connect on it, right? And we get this facial and emotional mirroring, which is expressing that Eris is capable of understanding the expressions of others and mirroring them back to the individual, which produces empathetic bonding, and that's what's going on between her and these characters. And it's truly fantastic, and it's a movement of these characters into being peers, which over the next months as we time skip will eventually move into the point where this character fights her because she thinks that they're peers and wants to change her opinion and change her way of being. And that's really interesting. But we get this mirroring going on. If you don't like it, don't do it is one thing. And then she says, but then dad get angry. So that's part of the problem, is that if your parent gets angry when you don't do the thing, it often seems, and this is just a guess that I'm making out into the void and a limb that I'm going out on, it often seems like a parent being angry for you not doing the thing is a great incentive to not do the thing. It seems to make the kid want to not do the thing more. because they feel like they're being forced to do the thing by their parents. Like, I'll be angry if you don't do this thing. And the kid's like, well, fuck you then. or something like that. You can't force me. You can't make me. This moment is the moment. This is how you empathy. So first we get the visual mirroring and the comprehension, and then we get this. You're just like me, Toma. You and me, we're the same. You're just like me. And then she expresses it. I hate studying. I don't like math or writing or reading. And so I'm grateful to Ghislaine because she taught me the most valuable skill, the one that I really am attuned to. But you're also grateful to Rudy for teaching you the skills that you didn't know you needed, right? Right, Eris? She doesn't conceptualize it, but we can put it in there, right? Is that Rudy helpfully and importantly forced her to learn the skills that she didn't want to learn herself and converted them into something that she could see as valuable so that she could want to learn them herself. That's what he really did. He didn't force her. That's the truth. I should backpedal. He didn't force her. He convinced her first through manipulation and then through the reality of where that manipulation took them. He convinced her that learning, reading, and writing and languages and stuff would be helpful to her swordsmanship and all the things that she actually wants to do. And so because he was able to take this chunk and align it with her core overall goal, it stopped becoming an obstacle to her and started becoming a boon. Because I've said this before, when you choose an overall goal, everything in your life shifts its representation to be either ignorable, obstacle, or helpful. And when you see learning, reading, and writing, for example, as an obstacle to you getting to your goal, which is to be the best swordsperson in the entire world, when you see that as an obstacle, you want to throw it away. You don't want to do it because it's distracting your focus from the main goal, which is becoming the best swordsperson. But if you can convince somebody that they're not the best swordsperson until they're also a good artist and also a good calligrapher and also a good writer and reader and thinker and mathematician, if you can convince them that those things contribute to them being the best swordsperson, then they will do them on their own. And they will need no more convincing because they're aligned with the goal. It's like in samurai times, to some extent, the ideal of samurai was someone who follows all these different codes, but who is also a philosopher and who is also a thinker and a writer and a calligrapher and an artist and a poet and all of these other things, right? And so, and a good leader and a good knight in a way, in the feudal sense, where like they treat their serfs with relative respect, blah, 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 right? But still, those were things that were part of the code. And it's like, there were plenty of samurai who went, no, the way to become the best swordsman is to do nothing but study the blade and to just go and fight and kill other swordsmen. And they got killed a lot by people who had their shit in order, because the people who had their shit in order were better at being the overall living entity, right? And so there's more to being a swordsman and the best at it than just being really good with the sword. You also need reasons, and you also need understanding, and you also need other forms of art and expression than just the one. Or at least to understand that they exist. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't be proud of the things that you've accomplished in the swordsmanship. And so we see, because of the empathy that's been established between we're just the same, you and I are just like each other, she talks about how much she loves the sword from that perspective, and it instills in this girl a little bit of that love for the sword, a little bit of that desire, which is, okay, if I trust you and you get this much out of it and you learned it from my aunt, and it's something that is missing from my family, I want it. And so she asks for it, which is crucial because she doesn't just sit there and go, gosh, I really want that thing. I hope Eris offers to teach me the sword, because Eris is never going to realize that she wants it. And so she asks for it. And at first there's some back and forth, and it's like, no, it's dangerous. And she goes, no, uncle, but the uncle will get mad at you. And she goes, do it. Please, please, please. And we do this face-to-face, right? Eye-to-eye, face-to-face, bridge of nose to bridge of nose. And it's so funny that just yesterday we watched exactly this in Cyberpunk Edgerunners between Maine and David, face-to-face, face-to-face, face-to-face. Please let me have this. And the other person goes, and they go, and you go, please, I mean it. And the other person goes, and then finally, all right, fine. A similar circumstance happened to me last Friday. I went up to a guy, I think I mentioned a couple of times that I wanted to go and get punched in the face. it's really important that I think that you go and get punched in the face. And the next step, now that I've been punched in the face, is to go and find somebody who's willing to actually spar with me and try to punch the shit out of them and see if they're trying to punch the shit out of me and I'm trying to punch the shit out of them, what happens. Because now that I've experienced the pain, I'm willing to dish it out because it's not that bad to get punched in the face wearing boxing gloves. So I know about where the pain level is and I know about what I would be inflicting on somebody else. But anyway, that's what I did last Friday. And I saw a couple of kids at the kids, like 18-plus-year-olds, right? Like kids. I'm getting old. And I ran over to one of them. I was like, "Hi, I'm so sorry to do this. Please do me a huge favor. I'm just gonna stand here with a big smile on my face. Please punch me right here. Just like 50% power. You don't have to punch me that hard. Just punch me in the face right here." And they both went, "Whoa, dude, no, you crazy? That's insane. Why, man?" And I, over and over, just please. I really need to do this. It's really important to my personal development. And eventually my friend and roommate came over and was like, "Look, he's been doing this for a while. He's been talking about wanting to do this, and he won't let me punch him in the face because he's got some reasons for not wanting an existing friendship to be spoiled by physical confrontation, and that seems to make sense. So I'm his ride home. You can punch him in the face. If you knock him out, everything will be fine." And finally, it took a lot of convincing, but finally the guy was like, "All right, man, where do you want it? Where do you want it?" And I told him, "Right here, man, right here." And I stood there and I looked him in the eye and I smiled, and he reared back, eye to eye, reared back, and he, in that moment where he reared back and I saw in his eye that he had decided to do it, I got what I wanted. It was that convincing and that moment, and I also got what I really wanted, which was to get punched in the face. And he socks me in the face, and it's like, pfft, and it's nothing. And he was not a small guy, and he didn't hit me weakly. It hurt. I won't discount that, but compared to even going like this, that was way more painful than the one punch in the face. It's just that you can't punch yourself in the face. There's like surprise to it. It's not you. It's like you can't really tickle yourself effectively. Some people can if they're very sensitive, but you know it's coming, and so it doesn't have the same effect as somebody else's hands upon you. Like, this does nothing to me. But if somebody else were to move their fingers, especially over my ribs and sides, it'd be fucking destroying me. So there's a difference there, and it's important. But what I was really trying to get at is this moment of being eye to eye with somebody and being like, "Please do this thing that might hurt me." And they're going, "Dude, it might hurt you." And you're going, "I know. I willingly accept that possibility. Please help me. Please teach me. Please show me. Please do this thing for me." And Eris acquiesces and decides to do it. All right, then. Here we go. I'll drill you until you see how great Ghislaine is, and off we go. I'm a strict teacher, and we pan over, and he's watching the whole time, listening the whole time, right? So both of them are going, because they don't understand their father, or she doesn't understand her father at all, right? She thinks, but Dad will be mad at me if I go and I practice the sword on my own. Impossible. Bullshit. He's been trying to get you to practice the sword for your entire lifetime. And finally, Eris comes in, says some stuff that inspires you, and it works. And he has the wherewithal and the intelligence as a parent, because some parents do not have this, and they will step in and be like, "No, it's my job to teach my daughter the sword. How dare you? Get out of my house." He has the wherewithal of the parent to stand silently and let the children go and play. Because their play ends up being exactly the work that he was trying to instill in them in the first place. I have an experience like this. My dad spent my entire childhood trying to develop in me the conceptualization of personal responsibility, and it never worked. And then basically as soon as I got out and away from him, I explored the things that I liked, which were anime and gaming, and came to the same conclusions in my own meandering path, in a different way. And they're not quite the same conclusions because they have the same foundational conclusions that my father did, but I have some conclusions about the way that he pursued organization and responsibility that I think indicate that he has some significant flaws in his interpretations of the world. And so, like, him forcing didn't work. Me going and doing play in spite of him, literally in spite of him, despite his insistence that I was doing what was wrong, led me to the same conclusions. So in the same way, but dad will be angry if you go and teach me swords. And Dad's like the opposite. He's like, "Oh shit, it worked. Fucking hell. And again, that's not always the case. Some parents do not have the wherewithal as parents to allow their children to learn outside of their context, right? Or in a way that they can't control. And that is something that you have to drill out of yourself. If you ever plan to be a parent or even a teacher or a friend, you have to drill that arrogance out of yourself, because the kid is going to learn a bunch of things their own way, and you can't effectively teach your child most things after a certain point, especially once they hit adolescence. What you can do is put the information in front of them and allow them to somewhat self-direct. And you can also ensure that you force them just enough that they get the groundwork, because they're immediately, when you tell them to do anything hard, learn math, learn to read, they're going to be like, but it's hard and it's painful and it's suffering. It's like, yes. And that's when you have to force them. You have to force them into it. But at a certain point, it stops being worthwhile, right? And so you got to look for a different pathway to get to the thing, because the pathway that you're using, which we can assume for him is the pathway of, I am your father and I told you to practice with the sword, so practice with the goddamn sword, you idiot. And that's what we get from her. She says, but then dad get mad if I don't do the thing. It's like, okay, that's a more complicated circumstance. But what he could have done is if he had stepped back, or if he'd known more about himself and about the family, if he'd been able to do what Rudy tried to do and do a little bit of sneaky manipulation and try to demonstrate to this character why understanding sword skills might be cool, or maybe just show her what cool swordsmen are capable of, which is what she sees in Eris and what she idealizes and admires in Eris, and admiration is the soul of aspiration. She admires Eris, and so she aspires to be like her, and she realizes that this swordsmanship thing is something that she lacks in the ability to be like Eris, and so she wants to incorporate that piece of knowledge and understanding and comprehension and capacity into her own dances, into her own way of life. And bam, there we are. And we show it, and the facial expressions and stuff are great. They show her ineptitude wonderfully, and she's angry as hell. Also, Abby as fuck. What I mean is, holy shit, dog, look at that fucking toned-ass core. I mean, for real. I mean, okay, I've got cats, and cats are muscular entities. They're strong. Humans in general are muscular entities. But gosh darn, all these meat-eating carnivorous peoples out here are built like fucking animals, and it's dope. You can understand. I mean, I can understand why the Boreases would be so into these sexy, healthy peoples. It's why I'm so into gym girls. It's because, like, geez, they're fucking capable of stuff, and it's cool. Fucking amazing. Fuck thin, waifish women. Not for me, man. Not for me. Maybe for somebody else. I'd like a girl who can, like, squat me, and that's not even a high bar. It's not even a high bar because I don't weigh that much. My daughter always refused to learn swordsmanship, he says, just out of nowhere. And Rudy turns like, huh? Out of where is this? No matter how often I told her to. And after that, he questions the truth of the thing. Is she really her master? Yes, Eris loves Sword King Ghislaine. And that's a new revelation as well. She's a Sword King? What the fuck? Oh, also she's learning magic, and he's laughing it off, and he's realizing that his whole view of this other person is completely incorrect. Like, totally another world going on. Completely. It's similar to what we discovered about my friend, as his friends and peers came over, is there's a whole other world that he's doing that doesn't work the same way as what we've seen of him. Completely. And he's hidden it. Probably because it's the only place where he feels confident and safe, and he worries that mixing the two worlds would ruin one of them. At least that's my guess. A good joke, but it's not a joke. And arithmetic and reading and writing as well? Impossible, I don't get it. So maybe my viewpoint is inherently and deeply flawed. Maybe I have to change it. We get the one frog, and this is our cut. Man, we cut 3 months in an instant, and suddenly she's competent, right? And the time flow is amazing. And the moves that she makes are similar to the moves that Eris made early on, except she's using her cat-like grace to allow it as well. And the actual cut itself is fascinatingly good with all this aerial combat. We get this grin of competence and this grin of a proud teacher, and the grin of the happy child who's just watching. We all get to eat some kinniku. I'll be better than you in no time. Nah, no you won't. Ha ha. And then we turn to the transition point, which is it's sort of the second act tension. And Eris is pleased to be moving on to the next town. Yay! But she doesn't even recognize that that's going to cause some attachment issues. Well, this character is insecure in their attachments, to steal more terms from psychotrists, who I hope will watch this. But wait, stay here forever. Please don't leave. Please don't leave. Please don't leave. What would I do without you? You've brought good change to my world. Rough, buddy. What are you going to do? You can't stay forever. And she tries to explain it. I've got my own reasons to go. And she tries to explain it like a child. Rainy season end, me leave. And she understands. And she's not pleased about it. And so this lady says some stuff. A sacred beast has always appeared where the world is in peril. It will journey forth with the hero, and we'll see how that goes, if at all. It didn't at the end of this episode. And he says, pretty sure I'm not getting aroused, but the sacred beast might be. Uh-oh. And, oh, how uncouth. I still think that this character is the fucking hottest. Ugh, oof. Hey, come quickly. They're fighting, and they're really fighting. No holds barred, except Eris is holding back, because we know that Eris could kill this girl in an instant, and a previous version of her might have, given the way that she has acted before. Eris gets overwhelmed by emotion, right? And that emotion overwhelms her actual love sometimes, and her ability to express things effectively. And so what we see is an immense amount of restraint from Eris, actually. And that's what Rudius immediately compliments. We pull back. She wants Eris to stay forever. Pull back and let her breathe. And the first thing that he says, she puts herself together like, what? And he says, I can see that you held back, because he sees through her facade. Huh. I thought he might, of course. We see that they're doing something similar, which is making, well, she's doing something similar. Tersena is doing something similar, which is that she's making these little idols to represent the people that will be missing, which is often what people do in order to make representations of the people that they'll miss, or the things that aren't nearby, and that gives them something that's close by, and something to hold in a representation and an idea, or a keepsake, or a memento, or something like that, and she's making those for her friend. And she's just pretty straightforward. You need to tell her that you're sorry. And she's like, no, I hate her, and I don't ever want to talk to her again, ever. And the dad comes in and is like, well, they're leaving tomorrow. You've been learning the sword for a while. So how do you feel about that? And he's doing the good parenting thing, which is to investigate the underlying layers of emotion. Well, how do you feel about the thing actually? And she's like, well, I hate it at first, right? She's like, I hate it. She's stupid, and I didn't want to learn the sword from her anyway. And she's a stupid jerk who should just leave. It's fucking stupid. And then he asks the real question, is like, how do you actually feel about the sword training? She's like, I love it, and I want it to continue forever. I don't want her to leave. I love her. She's a really good teacher, and I hate this feeling like I'm gonna get detached from this person that I've grown to care about so much. And that's exactly it, right? So we dig down to the core of the issue, and we recognize that there's something significantly more important going on here. I bet Aunt Ghislaine was a good master, and that reflects to him importantly too. And so he thinks about it. And so he explains a little bit of the history. You wouldn't know because you weren't born yet, but there was no indication that she would ever be capable of anything. She already had the eye, so the question that I have is, when did she run into Kishirika, if that's where she got it? And I don't know. But it's an interesting question. So she is feral, none of the makings of a great swordswoman. She wouldn't learn even to speak properly, let alone train. She was a ruffian who hit people and broke things when she was in a bad mood. She was like a monster. So here's what your homework is I'm looking for the thing that is referenced by the Gojira album, The Wild Child, L'Enfant Sauvage. Film of the same name. Yeah, The Wild Child in the French film. That's a worthwhile film to watch. And it tells the story of Victor of Aveyron, a child who was found alone in the woods, who had behaviors closer to a wild creature than a human. And this is essentially what we get in and you can look up any of that. And it's had a lot of influence on the way that we thought about people, because finding this person who was essentially an animal, who, because they hadn't been socialized, indicates some things about the way that children develop that we didn't know, that we just didn't know. And so we learned a bunch of them from them. And one of the things is that children who are poorly socialized act exactly like this, and very, sometimes it's a fault of an underlying structural anomaly in their physical brain, or in their chemical systems, or in something else, and sometimes it's purely a result of nurture, and the two can be distinguished very frequently. But children who aren't socialized act exactly like this. Children who aren't socialized effectively before they're 2 to 4, which is the period of the child that is in my house right now, and it's why I'm focused on it so heavily, and why I'm learning about the period as much as I possibly can, because I've discovered that it is maybe the most crucial period of a human being's life. Is, well, first off, the first moments of their life and all the way through, but this period of like 2 to 4 in socialization and learning how to interface with other people is utterly crucial. So kids, when they're like 2, young boys especially, but girls too, all of us have this capacity for violence and for expression, right? And we start hitting other kids, start hitting parents and caregivers, start lashing out physically. And if you don't socialize them effectively and figure out an effective way to prevent that sort of behavior and frame it in a way where you're not just being repressive of that behavior, but actually understanding it and learning to control yourself and learning that manifestation of control, children become feral and violent. Every human's capable of it, and if they're raised improperly, it is almost guaranteed that a human child will become significantly violent and will demonstrate a lot of the signs of antisocial personality disorders as a large framework. ASPD is a specific diagnosis, but as a large framework, all of the ASPDs seem to be, to some extent, at least partially related to the raising of the child, which indicates something. It indicates that the family and the culture and the group that is all standing around arrayed against Ghislaine, watching her and afraid of her, is at least in part at fault for her behaviors. And until we get her side of the story, we will not know why. I was relieved when a wandering swordsman came and took her, and relieved that I wouldn't be lumped in with my failure of a sister anymore. So instead of trying to help his sister, he wanted her gone. He didn't have enough compassion. And so he says, maybe it was really my duty to do something to help her. And I argue that it was. And in fact, it was the lack of something done to help her by him or by the parents. Potentially, the parents might have died. I don't know. We don't get any of the context. So we don't get the context. We just get the brother and the sister. And so often that's exactly how it is in life. Is like, the way that Ghislaine is raised is probably not the fault of her big brother, except insofar as it is his fault. And probably what he could have done to change it would have been a drop in the bucket that wouldn't have made much of a difference. But he still has to grapple with his own capacity for having changed it, and his own, it's almost like survivor's guilt, like, could I have done something differently? Could I have done something to change this circumstance and been better? And he's grappling with that concept in reverse, in the backward, in the past. And he's coming to the conclusion that maybe there was something he could have done, and maybe because of his attitude, he failed a person. You know, sort of in the same way that Rudius came to the revelation that by thinking selfishly about the actions of the trio who went into the battle, he got somebody killed, and maybe that was his fault. Now, maybe it was partly their fault for being the way that they were and running into a combat that they weren't ready for, but it was certainly he was certainly capable of causing some degree of change. And if he had acted immediately, they might not have been able to save the guy, but they might have, and not acting meant not being able to at all. So if he had done any sort of compassionate action toward his sister, it might have changed his future and hers, and he didn't, and so now he has to grapple with that. But the magic is, you can still change now when you realize that your past actions were wrong. And isn't that sort of the fundamental story of Mushoku Tensei anyway? Is that Rudy's past actions were wrong, but he can change them in the present and live a new life that is separated from that one simply by changing his actions, which is the thing that sends him into this new life in the first place. Let's not mince words. By making a particular decision to save somebody and sacrifice himself, very literally, and making a grand mort, a grand death, he changes, and he's able to reflect and change his actions. And so we see an extension of that in the characterization of this character. And we say exactly what he says. I regret that now. Maybe she and I could have understood each other better. And ain't that the truth? And ain't that the truth with any relationship that you have had with anybody that has fallen apart? Unless it was totally untenable for like real pathological evil reasons or some weird malice stuff. But even then, maybe you could have understood it. And so he says, in the frame of that regret, I doubt she'll ever come back here again. And that is sad. Is that what you want? Do you want to part ways with Lady Eris like that? And I think this is the sword. Yeah, it is. Okay, so that's what's in front of her. Let's see if we get another framing of it. Yeah, that's the sheath of her blade. So she's laying there staring at it this whole time, while dismissing the importance of it and saying, like, I don't want it anyway, but she is really staring at it. And so it's the wooden blade that is so marked and marred by all of the sparring with Eris, and literally a direct representation of their interactions, which is good. Okay, so we packing it up, and Rudy is doing the same talk with Eris, and then we hear them coming, and Rudy goes, oh, that's our cue. Guess we're gonna go take a walk. Let's go, Sacred Beast. Doot, 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 doot. And so they sneak in and are immediately noticed. She apologizes first. I thought Eris would apologize in return, but she does not. But she says, Shikata ga nai, essentially. Or Shikata nai. Okay, so Wagamama means self-indulgent, self-centered, disobedient, or willful. So it's like, I'm sorry for forgive me for being stubborn and selfish, which is about how it's translated. And there's a moment of tension. The look up to see if you've been addressed, right? Like, that's the hard part, because by apologizing, you open yourself up to vulnerability and to attack. And so she looks up to see what is she going to get. She might get a face of scorn or something, or she might get Eris turning away even further. But instead, Eris sits up and says, I guess I've got no choice, is how it's translated, which is Shikata nai. There's nothing to it. Shikata nai wa ne. And all is well. Ah. Okay. And so they get to share their beautiful things. And we represent the three frogs all stacked together as something of a stacked togetherness. And we have this bond that forms without our knowledge in the same sort of way. It's like, what the fuck is Ruijerd doing? Interesting. And how will Ruijerd have changed in the time that we haven't been paying attention to him? I don't know. You're welcome in our village, which is the greatest gift of all. And the people talk. Please spar with me. Show me the swordsmanship. And we add, I thought we were going to go hard Sakuga on this, and instead we go single, simple, straightforward, high-quality scene, and bang, 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 and Eris isn't there yet, and nobody else understands the conversation that they just had through Blades. Fascinating. Okay, we reacquire Geese, we do some exposition about a bunch of stuff, because Geese is just Speedwagon, and he just knows everything, and I love him. I'll be honest, I love Geese, and I'm glad that he's here, but I'm also very, very, very suspicious of Geese. He is a sus boy. And off we head in our strange road. So I guess that's the road, not a wall. It just continues going. Crazy. What a strange road cleaved through the forest by a sword, says the legend. And we go like, no, that couldn't be. What an unbelievable story. I don't know, man. I've seen people split boulders with swords. So, who knows? And Geese expresses a whole bunch of interesting information to us. He is a weird monkey boy with black fingernails, and I don't understand at all why he is that way. Maybe there's a whole population of monkey people who have black fingernails. I don't fucking know. But we've got this sight of 7. And I want to mention something about the whole Ruijerd doesn't know thing, is that Ruijerd used to train for one, and Ruijerd has been fighting for like a while, and people are really scared of his power and prowess, and he seems very competent. He's just never competed with any of the 7, or anyone close to them. So as far as we know, he might be at or above their level already. We just don't know. So that's kind of an interesting thing to say, is that Ruijerd, as sort of a vigilante who goes around doing his own thing, nobody's evaluated him. Nobody's sat him down and made him take the spearmanship test and been like, oh shit, you're a master, dog. You actually are already a black, like, he's been going around just fighting people in the woods, and everybody's like, these are the greatest fighters in our world, for they have fought in the dojo system and competed with each other to form the greatest forms of fighting. Here is the Hema master, who is best at historical European martial arts. Here is the katana master, who is best at traditional Bushido-style swordsmanship of Japan. Here is the martial arts master, and this guy's just been fighting people in the woods, and he steps out, and he's like all raggedy, and he steps into the ring and murders everybody. And they're just like, oh shit, you're the master, actually. We had no idea. It seems totally possible to me that Ruijerd is there. I would not be surprised. Because, like, when is this guy who is a murderer and not allowed in most civilizations going to find a civilization to evaluate his spearmanship skills effectively? Never, until he goes face to face with somebody who's worthy. And we know that somebody like Ghislaine is on the up-ups, right? Because she fought Lightning Boy, and that's getting to the higher tier. I don't know if it's up in the 7. It's not, I don't think. But it's getting to the higher tier of what we're talking about. And I think Ruijerd is as dangerous as Ghislaine, probably. But it's hard to say. This is getting into that Batman-Superman sort of thing, where you're just hypothesizing about the relative power levels of characters, and you just have no way of knowing, because it hasn't been expressed effectively in the media. But I'd love to see more of that stuff as we move forward. Because, well, they're interesting conflicts to have. I do want to see... Okay, so I'm guessing that this is probably Paul, but I'm unclear whether it is. It might be that sword god guy, and the reason that I say that is because there's a child next to this person, and I don't know who that is. But it might be the daughter? And then who is stacked as pie? I don't know. I just don't know. Oh, and there's a character over here with a staff that I didn't see. Interesting. So I don't know what any of this is. Neat. No clues. 0 clues. And where is Ghislaine? She's in villages and she's looking for stuff with a sword on her hip. Unclear. It's just unclear through the windows. Awesome. Regardless, I think this episode was fantastic in terms of interpersonal relationship dynamics, forgiveness, and the recognition of your previous misunderstandings of people that you just don't understand fully, and the ability to change your opinions of somebody seems to be the forefront of this episode, and it seems like a powerful and valuable lesson to take from the episode. So, like many of the episodes of Mushoku Tensei before, I take the lesson and I eat it all up, nom 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 nom, and then I say what I can to you about what I think the lesson was, and then you get to get into the comments and express it back to me what you think the lesson was, or how you think that I misinterpreted it, or whether there was even a lesson there, or how you just liked how the art looked during the one fight between Eris and the cat lady or the cat girl where they're like flying up and then she's doing flips over her and spinning around with swords and stuff, and it's like whippity pow boom pim pow lang wishing wah yaw. And if you want to just write a big comment that's just about that and how cool you find it, I'm down. I might read it. It might be fun. But the comments that I think are the best and the comments that get the most upvotes and updoots and stuff, I will comment spotlight next time. So if you want the best chance of your comment getting comment spotlighted, come support the Patreon, because it lets you get into the discussion immediately. And when you get into the discussion immediately, usually I only end up able to look at the Patreon only comments because I post the video for the previous episode right before I start watching the next one. So only a bare few new comments get filtered in by the time that I've watched the video and I'm actually doing the comment spotlight. So if you want your voice to be more heard, put some power behind it, some representation of value, which is money. Put some representation of value behind your voice, and I will give you more of a voice. And that's why I say put your mouth where your money is. So go ahead, put your mouth where your money is. Support the creation of seemingly to some extent ethically funded content, which is what's going on here, and support your own ability to speak out and my ability to like enable you to have more of a voice in terms of discussing and interacting around these valuable pieces of media that we have and extracting more lessons from them so that we can all form a better understanding collectively or something like that. Yeah, do that. Sub to the Patreon. Give me money for hookers and blow. How about that as an idea? Do that as well. No, but the money, it proves it. I don't know. It's like the validation. It shows that you mean it because you're willing to sacrifice something that you care about in order to assist me in my weird search for meaning in media. And that's what I keep doing. And I'm going to try to keep doing it as much as I can. I'm going to try to alter my course as best as I can to get as close as I can to the best way of doing that I can achieve. And we'll see how it goes as we move along. Thank you for joining me in the ride. I appreciate all the support. I appreciate all the comments. I appreciate all the viewership. And I appreciate all of you. Take care of yourself. Drink some water. Go outside, get some sunlight. Touch some dirt and grass and living things. Hug a cat if you see one. Hug a person if they look like they need it. Hug yourself if you got nobody else. It's not the worst thing in the world, and it can help. Love yourself, be good to yourself, be good to the people around you, and be good to the world at large. And I'll see you next week for more Mushoku Tensei. Peace.